Welcome to the WanderLearn show. I'm your host, Tapon. In this episode, I'll be reviewing this brand new book by Mary Roach. It's called The Replaceable You, Adventures in Anatomy, in Human Anatomy. It's a very fun book. Have you read Mary Roach? If you haven't, you really should. She's a fantastic nonfiction author. I've read almost all her books. There are books like Grunt that looks at military stuff. She's looked at how you swallow and eat and digestive tract, and looking at that. How do you pack for Mars? It's a very fun book, one of my favorites of hers. And she always writes in a very fun way. A great book that she also wrote is called Stiff. And Stiff is about cadavers and the whole process of cadavers. Always fascinating, esoteric subjects that she dives into. She dives in with always a bit of wit, a little bit of humor sprinkled throughout her books that make them fun to read, and a bunch of facts. She's a great author. So I was excited to get an advanced copy of this book, which is coming out this week. It's called The Replaceable You. And the whole idea is to look at body parts and how we are slowly but surely mastering the process of replacing our body parts. Now let's dive into the chapters themselves and look at the table of contents. All right, I'm going to show you The Replaceable You by Mary Roach, Adventures in Human Anatomy. She's the woman who wrote Fuzz and Stiff. Okay, this is just and this kind of summarizes exactly what the book is about. Replaceable You, Mary Roach sets sail on the uncharted waters of regenerative medicine, exploring the remarkable advances and difficult questions prompted by the human body's failings. When and how does a person decide they're better off with a prosthetic than their existing limb? Is there a sensitive way to harvest tissue and bones from the deceased? Which animals might be the best organ donors? So now we'll go, and that's Mary Roach herself, and then we'll just show you the table of contents. Table of contents, how to build a nose. Where she goes a little bit about the history of building a nose. Give Me Some Skin, where she talks about, obviously, human skin. And here's an interesting chapter. Chapter 3 is about pig organs and pigs with human organs. She goes to China and looks at a pig factory that is it's like a sterile place to a large extent. And they're trying to harvest pig organs and tissue. This was interesting. Chapter 5, the vagina dialogue. I learned there that there's two types of vaginas that you can make for people who are transgender. One is just something that looks like a vagina, but having an actual hole, an actual cavity, is much, much more complicated than just having a superficial look of a vagina, like a slit and something that looks like a vagina from at first glance. But a hole is a lot more complicated, but it can be done. Giving the finger transplants. Some people put their finger as a penis and replacement as a penis. And then another thing is about the prosthetic legs, about how we should have prosthetic legs and all that technology behind it. Don't remember what chapter 8 is about. Mechanical breathing and the iron lung. The iron lung that's when she goes into a bit of history, which I think is superfluous and not really necessary. But anyway, then cataract surgery, how the progress we made there. The last extension, battling the stigma of stomy. Never heard of that term, but basically it's about replacing parts near the colon and the rectum, the last 6 inches there. And then how to print a human. She doesn't really go too deeply into that. Hair transplant, she does definitely talk about that for a while. And then she talks about her last thoughts, and I'll get into that later. But that's basically a summary of the book itself. This is a pre-release copy, which is coming out. The actual copy is coming out soon. So what's my verdict on this book? As usual, I love her books. Great books. This is fantastic. Not my favorite book for a few reasons. I'll tell you why. One, because of the way she talks about human anatomy. I was expecting that they're going to talk a lot about the future and all the future innovations. And she does get into that, but not as much as I would like. Almost half the book is regurgitating history and things like that, like an iron lung from over a century ago, things like that. I was like, what, really? Do we need to talk about iron lungs? I want to talk about modern iron lungs. What are we doing now to have fake lungs and artificial respiration, things like that? And I wish she had focused a little bit more on the future. That's one criticism I have of the book. But if you want to know about the history, it's great. The other thing that's kind of surprised me is in the end, she actually kind of is a little bit pessimistic about humanity's ability to actually have replacement parts that are as good as nature. She ends with the final example, which is a human tear. The tear ducts, she thinks, might be some of the simplest things that the human body makes. It's just water and saline, effectively. How complicated could that be? We should be able to reproduce that. We should be able to duplicate that, right? Well, she dives into it, and there's a few companies actually trying to reproduce tears, and they're struggling. It's not easy. It's a problem. And so she kind of ends on a downer note in the sense that maybe we'll never be able to duplicate well what nature does. And that's where I kind of disagree with her to a certain extent. I think that we can beat nature and eventually make replacement parts that are so good that they'll be better than our natural parts. We might have eyes that are like these bionic eyes that allow us to zoom in like an eagle or do infrared. We might have tougher skin. We have some people who have prosthetic limbs that can actually run incredibly fast and win races. And maybe they'll advance so much that we're no longer going to allow them to run in any race because prosthetic limbs give such an incredible advantage that people are going to be running the 100-meter dash in 7 seconds or 8 seconds, something that seems humanly impossible. Still a great book. I highly recommend anything that Mary Roach writes, and I really enjoyed it. And if you want to get the book or at least download a free sample, go into the links below and you'll find a way to get it on Amazon and download at least a sample chapter, and I think you'll get hooked. This is Francis Tapon, encouraging you to wander and learn.
And that ends this episode of the WanderLearn podcast, where we explore travel, technology, and transformation. If you'd like to see the show notes with links to what we've talked about, go to wanderlearn.com and click on this episode. If you'd like to connect with me, just remember Tapon. That's my first initial and my last name. Tapon is always my social media username. My website is ftapon.com. Do you want to leave me an anonymous voicemail where you can make a comment or ask a question? Then go to speakpipe.com/ftapon. Furthermore, if you'd like to get rewarded for supporting my projects, then go to patreon.com/ftapon. That's where you can pick up some remarkable rewards for as little as $2 a month. Now, 5 quick favors. Number 1, subscribe to the WanderLearn podcast. 2, download it. 3, share it. 4, review it. And 5, sign up for my newsletter at wanderlearn.com. Our theme music was composed by Eric Stratman. This is Francis Tapon, encouraging you to wander and learn.